First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai Ba'ashem Rokak Wadash. Yahweh is to this world ignorantly calls God. Yahweh Shai is to this world ignorantly calls Jesus. Ba'ashem means in the name. Rakah means spirit, and Kodash means holy. That's all in the Paleo Hebrew. Also, want to give double honors to the elder bishops and apostles of Great Millstone that taught me this truth. Today's video, I wanted to go into. I was watching this brother's video here, and there's a clip at the end of this one Jake who came up and was pretty much asking like, "What y'all doing?" Rah rah rah. And I'm gonna just play the video and then I'll explain what I thought.
Unless the Lord wanted to hurt us, man. We good to go. We riding our bikes.
Y'all live streams?
Yeah.
What y'all be doing?
We teaching the Bible. What you be doing?
I do YouTube and I do a little this and that. Hey, y'all subscribe to me on YouTube, RJ the G123.
What you be talking about on your YouTube?
I be just doing a whole bunch of like random stuff, you know.
Random stuff?
Yeah.
You never heard of the Israelite?
Nah,
the Hebrew Israelite? That's our people. We really the Israelites. We're not African. You ever heard that?
Nah, I ain't never heard that. I thought we was African American.
Well, that's what they call us, but that's not actually what we are. They got us from Africa, but before we was in Africa, we was in the land of Israel.
Yeah.
You know,
that's
the Jews,
the first man
the
was
12 tribes of Israel, that's us. Our ancestors that came over here on the slave ships was the Israelites, the people from the Bible. You know, the one they call the son of the Lord. They say Jesus, but that ain't really his name. Him, King David, all the great kings, that's all our people. That's what we be talking about.
What's y'all, you on YouTube as well?
Yeah, we on YouTube.
What's our YouTube?
It's GMS South Carolina.
GMS?
Yep.
GMS South Carolina.
Great Millstone, South Carolina.
Alright,
Yeah. Look us up.
I'm gonna look y'all up. Alright, man. Y'all have a good night.
Alright, then. Have a good night.
Right, that was a clip. You saw the guy there that came up asking, and you know the craziest thing was that he said that he never heard about no Hebrew Israelite, and that he just said, "I thought it was African American." Right, and that right there, you know, is a whole thing you have to unpack. You know, why they call us African American, and going into how there's a difference between the Negroes that are here in America and the blacks that are over there in Africa. Right, we go back to two different people. Okay, the Negroes go back to Shem, and the so-called Africans over there, you know, the ones that they be saying got those crazy gauges in the ear, you know, chasing lions or walking around naked. Hey, they go back to Ham. So, let's deal with the first point that he went into. He said, "I thought we was African American." Or no, actually, let's deal with this point. The fact that he didn't know this truth at all. Okay, Romans chapter 11 and verse 7, it says, "What then? Israel hath not obtained that which he seeketh for, but the election hath obtained it, and the rest were blinded." Right, so that's going into the word. Right, what are the Israelites looking for today? They're looking for the truth, the knowledge, the understanding. That's why you see every single so-called Latino, Negro, Native American going after all these gods. Is because they're looking for the Most High. But ultimately, the Lord has got them blinded. Right? So, you know, this was the case of this brother right here. You know, he was blinded for his whole life until this specific point when he got the understanding of, hey, we're Hebrew Israelites. Now, if he repents, you know, and actually is part of the elect, hey, he's going to cut off, you know, his dreads. Actually, I don't think he got dreads. My bad. You know, he's just going to repent. He's going to stop all the wickedness he does. He's going to stop smoking. He's going to stop eating pork, shrimp, crab, lobster, committing adultery, all those abominations. Right? And he's ultimately going to call upon Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. Right? That's only if he's part of the elect. But if he's part of 2/3, ultimately he's going to stay in that blinded state. He's going to stay doing his own thing. And ultimately this is just going to be another conversation with a random group of people. So I wanted to bring this up because it was spiritual how, you know, Jake is out here looking. You know, there's no such thing as coincidences. That's one of the first things you learn when you understand the Lord. That everything happens for a reason. So the fact that the brothers were out there on that day and he came up, you know, actually asked a question, you know, that's sometimes the Most High works that way. You've had brothers that have woken up this way, you know, coming up to a camp and literally the same way. And now they're out here, you know, doing the work. So, wanted to go into that first. And second is what he said. aren't we African American? Nah, I searched up what's an African American. It says African Americans, also known as Black Americans and formerly also called Afro Americans, are an American racial or ethnic group consisting of Americans with partial or total ancestry from any of the black racial groups of Africa. Okay, and ultimately that term African American, is completely flawed because there's no such thing as an African American. What there is a thing as is a Israelite, a Edomite, a Ishmaelite, a Moabite, a Ammonite. Right? These are all nations that the Lord created. Right? And these are ultimately the only true what's the word? Denominations or filters that people are supposed to go by. Right? Is what nation they go back to. Right? It go back roughly 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago. They weren't talking about, oh, I'm an American. Obviously, there wasn't an American back there, but they'd be like, oh, he's from Babylon, but he's from the house of Edom. He's a Israelite. Oh, the Moabites. That's what they would talk about. They would call themselves after who they actually go back to, right? And when you go to how many nations are in the Bible, there's ultimately 18. Right here. You got Israel, so-called white man, India, Assyria, Syria, Arabs, Chinese, and these would be their original names. Arawam, Ayalam, but pretty much a simpler way of reading that. Can't really see it there. This goes into all the tribes or nations that the Most High created. I'll just have to read it from here. But Edom, Elam, Asher, Aram, Ishmael, Moab, Ammon, Cush, Mizraim, Phut, Canaan, Gomer, Magog, Javan, Ashkenaz, Tarshish, Kittim, and Israel. And those are, the 18 nations that the Lord has created. So that's what you're supposed to be calling yourself by, is one of those. Truly. Now, what he said about African American, I went to the point that the Africans and the blacks over here, so-called blacks, are different, right? And this is a perfect example of how, when you look at their physical structure, the face, the way that they're made, is nothing close at all similar, right? And I remember, I saw a point going into how one thing that delineated the Hebrew Israelites is that they had shovel teeth. But I'm going to have to do some research on that later on. I'm going to leave that tab open just to do that. But like I said, not the same people at all. Okay, and this is from the Zondervan's Compact Bible Dictionary. It says, Ham, the youngest son of Noah, the progenitor of the dark races, not the Negroes, but the Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites. Right? Why does it emphasize not the Negroes? Because they go back to Shem. Jews go back to Shem, African Ham. So that's the first point in that African American lie. And if you don't believe me on that point, right, that the Negroes are the true Jews, here is a book by Lenora E. Burson, The Negroes and the Jews. And I actually searched up this book to see where you could get it, and it's $3,000 on Amazon. There's a reason why it's $3,000, because it has a truth in it. So, but ultimately you can find it on, I think, archive.org. This website has a lot of books that you can get for free. Might have to do a little read on that too. I'll put that to the side. But she essentially said in the book, on page 212, the Negroes claim to be Jewish. That's another thing. There's no such thing as a Jewish person, right? There's only a Jew. When they say Jewish, that suffix ish means like. So if you're red-ish, you're like the color red. So, and that's exactly what those people are over there. They're Jewish. They're like the Jews, but they ain't. So Negroes claim to be Jew is legitimate. The land of Israel is located in Western Asia and borders on North Africa. All of the native inhabitants of that region were non-white. When Spain expelled the Jews in 1492, many of them went to Africa. It seems probable that some of them were brought later to America as slaves. The spirituals never sing of African rivers. It's always the Jordan or the Red Sea. They don't sing about African chiefs or kings. It's David or Moses, some other Jewish characters from the Bible. Right? That's the proof that we are those people. Right? It's literally this. Okay, and there is way more receipts than just this excerpt out of this book. Right? And ultimately, the biggest receipt is the Bible prophecy. The prophecy of how we're going to be brought over here on slave ships. You know, the Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 68. Let's get that. I haven't gotten into this in a while. It says, and this is going into the curses that the Israelites was gonna, or that the Lord was gonna put on the Israelites. Right, verse 15. But it shall come to pass, if thou not hearken unto the voice of Yahweh thy power, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. Right, and from verse 15 to verse 68 are all the curses that came upon our people. It says, and Yahweh shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again. And there you shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. Now, when you go into this, the Egypt here is actually talking about America. The link to that is when you have the understanding that in Revelation, when it talks about Babylon the Great, that's talking about America. Right? You have to get that connection first. And after you get that connection, it says in Revelation chapter 11, verse 8, that Babylon the Great is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt. So, by process of elimination, America is spiritually called Egypt, and that's where you get the understanding of this. It says, and Yahweh shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again. And there you shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. Right, so we're going to be sold unto our enemies as slaves. And it says, no man shall buy you. Now, when you go into that word buy, it's not what we think about today in the modern English, such as buying and selling. When it's talking about buy, the context is this right here, redeeming his people. Example is, if somebody says, if you're in a shitty situation, somebody says, who's going to buy you out of that situation? Right, going into who's going to save you? And the answer is nobody was going to save us from this captivity. That's why none of these are so-called black, movement leaders, Malcolm X, what's the other guy? Martin Luther King. None of these guys ever did nothing because no man was going to save us from our condition. The only person is Yahweh Shai. So, the transatlantic slavery was prophesied in the scriptures. And this is the prophecy. Now, another one that talks about it is Joel chapter 3 and verse 4. I'll start at. It says, yea, and what have ye to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon, and all the coasts of Palestine? Will ye render me a recompense? And if ye recompense me swiftly and speedily, will I return your recompense upon your own head? Because ye have taken my silver and my gold, and have carried into your temples my goodly pleasant things. The children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have ye sold unto the Grecians, that ye might remove them far from their border. Right, and that's the transatlantic slavery right there. Right, it says that Tyre and Zidon. Right, when you go into what those nations are, Zidon goes into the name of a son of Canaan. Right, and who are ultimately the Canaanites? Hamites. So it's talking about these people. These people sold the Israelites with all the coast of Palestine, or the so-called Arabs, to who? The Grecians, so-called white man, Edomites, that ye might remove them far from their border, right? Because we literally traveled over the we traveled across the Atlantic Ocean. So, this is ultimately what it's talking about. Now, one point I didn't bring out is how did the Negroes get into northern and western Africa? This woman quoted it quickly. or she said in Spain in 1492. But it happened in 70 AD when the temple got attacked, sacked by the Romans. Right? And it happened way before that too because our people were constantly being scattered. But mainly 70 AD, and that she says 1492. Now, another receipt that proves this point is I'm gonna read this first. So I searched up: does the claim that Negroes in America are Hebrew Israelites actually have evidence? And it says biblical interpretations, right? The Deuteronomy 28, which I read. It says historical theories. Some proponents argue that Israelites were scattered during ancient times, and that some groups in West Africa, from which many enslaved Africans were taken, had Israelite ancestry. Cultural similarities. Certain West African communities, such as the Igbo of Nigeria, have traditions that some claim resemble Hebrew customs. And that's another strong point, is that, not all the Negroes, the Israelites, went on those ships. Okay? There were some Israelites that avoided pretty much the slave trade and ultimately stayed in Africa and kept those Hebrew customs. And today, they still follow them. And I have a video here from Ahavat Ami, some rabbi, Jewish imposter. And he's talking to that tribe that we just read about in ChatGPT, the Igbo. Now, this guy being a rabbi, let's see what he says about them.
Cut the rope, he will fall into the pit, and they will close the pit and return back home.
You know what you are?
Who are
You are an ancient Israelite.
Ancient Israel, that's who we are. That's who we are. So if you give me time, if you give me.
And you heard it right there. Here it is. Right, you have a whole rabbi talking about, hey, y'all are the true Israelites. And that's the truth. Okay? That is the truth. So, when you put the pieces together, everything lines up. Now, the problem with these people here is that they've adopted the Hebrew, or not a Hebrew, but they've adopted the ways of the so-called white man. They're trying to follow the Most High the way that these people try to follow the Most High, which is putting the little white cap on your head, and speaking that Yiddish, which ultimately, if you were to read the scriptures, it says that you're not supposed to cover the top of your head, right? You're dishonoring yourself when you do that. So, that's where these people are going off, is following their way. But, hey, our people are lost still. Let's keep reading. Arguments against the claim, genetic evidence. Genetic studies have generally not shown a direct connection between African Americans and the ancient Israelites. Most African Americans have genetic ties to West and Central Africa. Right? Why is that they have genetic ties over there? Right? Because our people were over there for a certain period. And that whole thing with DNA, right, genetics, that ultimately doesn't make them, it doesn't really matter that much because it all goes back to your father. Okay, and that's all that matters. So let's say I'm an Israelite, right? I'm living in the land of Israel, but I go and live in Russia for 10 generations. For 1,000, 2,000 years I'm living in Russia. But me, now I go and I have, a child with the so-called white woman. And that child, comes out looking pretty much white, as they say today. That child will be an Israelite no matter, what he looks like. But when they would look at the DNA, the genetic evidence, they'll look at, hey, where I've been at and be like, damn, this guy has been in Russia, If this guy has ancestry to Russia, all his family has been Russian, this guy has to be this. But at the end of the day, he's an Israelite. And that might have been a chopped up explanation that I gave, but hopefully it made sense. It all goes back to your father is the point. Doesn't matter what you look like or where you're from. It all goes back to your father. It says, lack of historical documentation. There is no strong historical or archaeological evidence connecting West African populations to ancient Israelites. And that's not true because here is the evidence. People following Hebrew customs, doing it by themselves. It says Jewish scholarly consensus, mainstream Jewish and historical scholarship does not recognize Hebrew Israelite claims as historically valid. Of course, they're not gonna say that our claims are valid, because if they do that, that means that their whole belief is flawed. That if they say that we're the true Israelites, that means that they aren't, right? Because the true Israelites, they are not supposed to be back in the Holy Land until Yahweh Shai, the Messiah, takes them back there. Right? So what are they doing over there right now? Who are those people? So these are the questions you got to really ask. But, and also, they don't want you knowing who the true Israelites are. That's one of the world's biggest um, secrets ever known. So, I think the point has been established. I went over the one guy right here call himself African American. I went into how there's no such thing as that. There's a difference between so-called black people. One of them go back to Shem, the other go back to Ham. I went into the book, how this woman brought it out, how the claim is legitimate. I went into a live interview of a rabbi saying that the Igbo tribe are Israelites. And I went into the prophecies, Joel the 3rd chapter and Deuteronomy 28. So if that's not more receipts, to maybe prove a point, I don't know what is. Hopefully this is edifying. With that, give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahushai Ba'ashem, Rokah Kodash, and double honors to the honored bishops and apostles of Great Millstone that taught me this truth. Shalom to you, like Shalom.